All righty. Well, with that, John, I'll turn it over to you. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
All right, thanks, Beth. So just fair warning to everyone, we are experimenting with a SIGUCCS webinar simulcast that is live here at UMBC as well. We have 3 guests with us in the room where Andrea and I are at. Just a reminder to our guests that you're live as well. So if they can hear me, they can hear you. When we get to Q&A, that's fine. But for right now, you're in listen-only mode as well. All right. So this is a repeat of sorts for a presentation that Andrea and I gave at the SIGUCCS conference in November. And we'll give you a little background just about UMBC, our Sterling website. A few little brags about the university. First of all, we're very close to UMBC, to BWI Airport, about 5 minutes away. The university was founded in 1966. We are in our anniversary year for our 50th anniversary. We're about 14,000 students. A couple of brags that we talk about in terms of being up and coming. We're so good they actually retired the category. So we were #1 for all of the years that U.S. News had the #1 up and coming. The standing joke here was at some point, when did we arrive? And I guess maybe now that they've closed out the awards, we'll put a bow on that and say we have. We can kick your butt in chess, and we're a good school for women as well. So this is also following up on a paper that Andrea and I wrote for the SIGUCCS conference. If you want, I think there are links to it available both at the conference website, and we can follow up as well. But let me give just an overview of what we're sort of talking about, give a little background. Some of the problems that we are facing, go right into the solution, the results, some related issues and opportunities, and then provide some resources and links. We'll try as best we can to get to Q&A as quickly as possible. So the basic problem that we were looking at is that when the university adopted the RT, Request Tracker ticketing system, first of all, it was just IT, and then a year later, more of the campus started to use it. What was interesting is that the usage across campus really skyrocketed to the extent now that we're well over 100,000 tickets a year, and the IT portion of that is about a quarter, maybe even a little less now, just given how much has been going on. The challenge with that is our staff did not necessarily grow, and we had something that was just really not used very much. It was our knowledge base, our FAQs. The concern that I had was what does it mean to have 25,000 tickets when you have a staff for full-time staff in our IT department is about 75. We have a little more than that in terms of part-time student consultants. Andrea kind of came up through the ranks through the Technology Support Center, formerly our help desk, and is now coordinating it. But it just concerned me, how would this ever scale in terms of where the response is, we always respond to people, whether can they help themselves. So what we ended up doing is we completely revamped our frequently asked questions, first and foremost, and I think this is important, by talking to the folks at the TSC, at the help desk. What are you dealing with the most? What are the things that you get hammered over and over again? About this time, in terms of instructional technology, which is the area that I supervise, we were big into screencasts, really trying to focus on show and tell kinds of FAQs, very focused, sort of almost YouTube-like snippets where people could see how to do something, not just be described how they should do it. We really made a big deal of trying to make it prominent. We tried to encourage users to suggest FAQs and correct the FAQs. I would say that piece has not quite panned out as much as I hoped, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Andrea and some of her colleagues did a good job of really sort of trying to eliminate the dead wood. And we even created FAQs on how to create FAQs so that people could kind of figure it out themselves. I think the key thing, though, was this ticket quality rubric. We will get into it. We'll show you what it looks like. But the key point is this, is that a good, relevant FAQ is an acceptable initial resolution to a ticket. In other words, it's okay to resolve the ticket saying, here's the link that solves your problem. If it doesn't, hit reply and reopen the ticket. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the user does not reopen that ticket. So apart from just pushing the FAQs, we also don't have a lot of open tickets anymore, which I think Andrea will talk a little bit about as well. This is sort of what the FAQ looks like in terms of the homepage. It's, I won't say that it's going to win a beauty pageant, but in terms of effectiveness, it has been pretty helpful. People can find it on our Do It website, the Division of Information Technology, under support, find help FAQs. We promote it, both the general FAQs, and then this is IT only FAQs. We also, this is our My UMBC campus portal, where under the help link, this is how you can find it. The interface has changed a little bit since this screenshot, but generally what we're trying to do is make it easy for people to try to find help. You'll notice in the search box in the upper right that has the Go button, those now integrate the results of the FAQs, not just the search of the campus portal or the campus website. So we're trying to integrate the results that people can find, because face it, most of us are more search dominant than browse dominant, and so we're trying to take advantage of that. So we'll talk a little bit about the results, and I'll invite Andrea to chime in with me as well. So first of all, when we were looking at this, we were looking at page views. If you're familiar with sort of web hits and technology, a page view is different than a click. You might have multiple page views. And in the orange, back in 2012, we had a certain level. The year later, it just sort of skyrocketed. It across the whole year. Fast forward about 4 years, and increasingly that we're just getting more hits. Now, what's interesting, Andrea pointed this out, was that you see where the blue is below the orange peak in January. This was actually, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
This actually correlates to a time when we switched to managed hosting for Blackboard, and we had a lot less service requests because
it worked better.
It worked better.
And so we weren't getting tickets, and we also weren't seeing FAQ volume on that as well. So it's interesting if you feel like you have sort of a cause and effect, or you think you know what the root cause is. It's interesting to look at the data as you're looking at the interface as well. Some of the, so these are sites here at UMBC that are referring back to the FAQs. I showed you our campus portal, My UMBC. 40% of the traffic that is going to the FAQs is coming from the campus portal. That's something that we want to have happen by design. We are, a portal is a hub. It's a central collector, where we want people to sort of congregate, and that's starting to happen. Our Blackboard learning management system generates a lot. We have, quite a bit from the UMBC homepage. Not as much from the Do It website, but that's okay. And then these are, again, other sites within the campus environment itself. This is kind of interesting because it shows how the growth of the ticketing system has evolved, and in some ways how the IT's ticket growth has either dipped or remained flat. So I hope everyone can see this okay. Maybe you can chat and Andrea can pick that off if we're getting confusing here. But the blue is FY12. The orange is FY15, and we're already in FY16, so we need to update this. But this is what we had last summer. You can see already that academic affairs, the use of RT has skyrocketed. I predict at some point they're going to have a problem in how do you turn around on all of those requests that come into RT. The administrative services had a similar jump, but then it started to level off. Not sure that they're necessarily using FAQs. There may be some other things that they have taken offline. Student affairs still hasn't quite discovered it yet. We're working with them. But the Do It side, the little kind of boxy rainbow there, has remained relatively flat. So the number of tickets even though the overall campus usage has grown, the number of tickets coming in for IT has remained relatively stable. And when we first did it, it had declined. In terms of phone calls to the TSC, the Technology Support Center, they have gone down considerably. You know, we used to get close to 18,000. Now we're just, you know, about 10,000 or so. That's huge when you think about it in terms of sort of the time that it takes to answer a phone call and things like that. I want Andrea to talk about this though, because she particularly pointed out some things on cost savings that I think would be really relevant. So go ahead.
So we've been doing various pushes to use FAQs for quite a while here on campus. Just a little bit of a summary. The first year that we kind of revamped our knowledge base, we had 3,000 page views roughly, and now we're up to 400,000 climbing. We now have 30% fewer support calls, as John just showed. Overall, despite the fact that we're continuing to use RT in different ways for logging audit issues and things like that, we still have 3% fewer support tickets overall for Do It. But the real big part that I like to point out is that we're doing a whole lot more at the TSC with a whole lot less staff. We now have our students resolving 50% of all the support requests that get resolved at the Technology Support Center. When I first started taking over here, our students were resolving 0.
They were entering tickets, but they weren't resolving.
Yes. And the really nice stat that we have here is that our budget decreased by $50,000 a year in student staffing just by switching to this model where our students are now empowered and encouraged to use FAQs as support responses.
Yep. As Andrea points out, that's a full-time staff person.
Yes.
Cost saving. All right, so now what we want to do is take you through just a practice quiz. This is kind of a ticket quality calibration exercise, and if I don't mess this up, both the audience here at home should be able to participate just as equally as the audience on the webinar. So I talked a little bit about the ticket grading rubric. I know there's a lot of detail on here. Let me just try to walk you through it, and I'm going to add, you know, just another element to it. Basically, what we say an A ticket is any ticket where we refer the user to the FAQ. So when we resolve a ticket, if we can do so using the FAQs, we, in our own ticket quality review, which Andrea does every Friday about this time, Andrea does a review of all the tickets, and we grade them from the into the TSC. If the student consultants are providing really good customer service, but they don't refer to the FAQs, we give it a B. There's nothing wrong with a B. It just means that what we're trying to do is that let's help the person, but let's help them help themselves as well. And if you do it enough times, over time, they start to get the hang of it. You get the rest of this. A C is, you know, what I would call average, you know, timely and adequate. We really don't have any D's or F's anymore. And I think in hindsight, you know, this was really just a metaphor. Because we're at a university, a report card sort of makes sense. But I want to just kind of go back to that same thing. What we say is that the FAQs are an acceptable initial resolution to a ticket. Now, it assumes that you have an FAQ that's relevant. If you don't, you try to make it up and you try to resolve the ticket, you're going to suffer the consequences. But we're finding that's not the case. All right, so what we will do next is do the ticket grading exercise. So I'm going to switch screens here in a second. But what you will do is go to this website down at the bottom link, polev.com/Fritz UMBC. And then while you're doing that, I'm going to switch screens. I'll have the exact same web address, but let's see if I can do this without messing it up. All right, so what I'm going to do now is this poll is now live. Again, you go to polev.com/Fritz UMBC. And what I'd like you to do is put a click of your mouse on the grade that you think this ticket should get. And I know it's small, so I'm going to read it back to you real quickly. And I know Andrea hates this ticket because it's one of hers when she was a student, senior consultant here. But let me start from the chronology at the bottom first. I was in the middle of taking a test when Blackboard went out tonight, Friday night, right at 10 for Psych 100. The test now says I have run out of time, and it submitted one of my answers because none of them had saved. What should I do? And back in this time, Andrea said, please contact the professor. Now, what I would like you to do is, using the ticket rubric, grade Andrea's response to that ticket. So if you want, you can click on it, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, we've got a C, a B, 2 C's. Now we've got a stray mark. Now the way this works is that you will only get to vote once. But what I'm starting to see is sort of a concentration of C's. Ooh, a D.
That's 2 Ds.
I don't think you got D's down in Tampa when you did this.
No.
So Andrea's has improved, I will tell you that. But we'll see if there's any more voting. Good? Okay. So I'm going to show you another ticket, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Okay? So now we're going to go to another ticket, and this is actually a student who Andrea recruited, trained, hired, recruited, and trained on how to use this. And see if I can read this again. Hi, I would like to transfer the course documents I had from last semester into my new class course documents. How do I do that? And Ben, who was trained under Andrea under this, said, in order to transfer your old documents to your new class, you can export the old files and import them into the new course. Here's the export old files FAQs. He actually didn't say FAQs, but just gave the link, and then resolve the ticket. So where do you all think? And very interestingly, the concentration is going up to the A's. All right? Oh, a B. That'd be interesting. If we get to the Q&A, it'll be interesting to kind of just see kind of what governs people's reactions there. So I'm going to say we're sort of done with the voting on here. 10-3, very different response from what we had in the previous ticket, right? Now, the point of this is not to make anybody feel bad or feel good. What we actually got this sort of exercise from a consultant who said, when you get people in a room and ask them to evaluate a ticket, your assumptions come to the forefront as to what quality is. And so by doing this exercise, what we've done is kind of calibrated our radar about what constitutes support quality. Now, for our purposes, we have sort of tilted towards let's help the user help themselves. You may say that an A ticket is heroic measures beyond compare. The only problem is how do you scale that, okay? And that's what we were trying to do. All right, now I'm going to try to switch over and see if I don't mess this up. We've kind of done the ticket grading, so I'm going to just blow through these again. Okay, so this is the kind of weekly summary that Andrea gets and goes through each of these tickets and actually counts the grades of A. What I think is really interesting, and I like to focus on this, is this kind of third and fourth column, student resolved count and student resolved percent. To me, that's always an indication that we have empowered our students. Again, before we did this, they weren't allowed to resolve tickets. Now they're doing, easily 50% and more. The other thing, and Andrea has kind of followed this, is the password resets. It's the bane of any help desk is, the account management of resetting passwords. We have been trying to use that as sort of a kind of a barometer of sort of user health check. We would love to see it at 0. I don't think we will ever get there. But as you can see, it has been going down. But every once in a while, it starts to spike up. And it's sort of the canary in the mine shaft that gives us a clue that maybe either we've got a bunch of new users, that are now in the system, or maybe there's something wrong in our environment that we're trying to work through. but it's a useful tool, and I think this is the kind of detail that Andrea is going through. I think you get about how many tickets a week?
Right now, we're in a slower period, so we're probably getting about 70 tickets. The point that I would make note of is this report only looks at tickets that our office resolves. It doesn't take into account the tickets that our ticket then escalates to other groups in the department. But the idea of it being a health check, it's more of a health check for the entire department rather than just the password resets, because this gives us an opportunity to go through and look at all the tickets that are coming in. We can maybe catch the less than great tickets if a student maybe didn't give the right answer and provide them with close to weekly feedback on how they could have done better. We can identify issues or trends that we're seeing if we get a lot of tickets about something in particular. It's a really good health check for all of these support requests that we're seeing.
I will say when we first asked Andrea to do this, I think you were groaning. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to review the tickets. And I even offered it up to Andrea. I said, you could sample the tickets, rather than do them all. And she said, no, this is actually an exercise, and this report card is shared with all of the students, so they all get to see it. What I've tried to do is say this is not about the individual per se, it's how is our organization working to help users, and I think it's been a useful exercise. You want to talk a little bit about kind of the password resets? This is just another thing, just focusing on those particular metrics, I think. Yeah.
So this is a report that shows how many tickets each week for this period of time that we resolved via the blue line. And then it also shows the student resolved. Students can't resolve password resets, so you will see a direct relationship between how many tickets our students were resolving in a particular week versus how many password resets we had. So that's one reason that we truly try and focus on the password resets, because that really ties up our 2 full-time employees if we're stuck resolving passwords. So.
And just for if people are asking, why are we having password problems? We have some self-help features that have not been particularly helpful or enabled, and it's showing, and we're aware of this. But what's interesting is that this kind of trend data has helped focus our resources in what I would call tier 3 of the sort of back-end infrastructure to try to improve this. So some next steps that we're thinking about is creating more buy-in from non-IT units. It's getting there, but isn't quite what we would like. As we pointed out in the article, the Confluence wiki that we use isn't particularly pretty, but we think it's effective. And I think this is an important one, is kind of satisfying the ego of support stars. When you have a really good IT support person, they want to do their job. They want to make someone's day. They want to, be a hero. And I'm all for that. But if they are off the desk at the time when somebody else comes, how does that person get the effort they need? So what we're trying to do is balance good customer service with good infrastructure that helps people help themselves. Some of the things we're trying to do, we've already done, is integrated into our portal search, My UMBC. We're featuring it more in our Do It site redesign, and we're partnering with other folks in terms of trying to look at this, including University of Wisconsin and Indiana University, which I would completely bow to as sort of the grand poobahs of knowledge management. They are really doing it right. I think one of the things they were intrigued was our attempt to link FAQs to ticket resolutions. I think that might be our contribution, is trying to help there. Some of the resources, knowledge bases we watch include Wisconsin, Indiana, Virginia Tech, Boston University. And the last link here, using Confluence as a knowledge base, I actually stumbled across this 2 years after we had already started using Confluence as our FAQ. I ran across their own site that suggested how to do it. And when I kind of looked at it and benchmarked what they were doing, I gave us a pass. I thought that we were sort of doing most of what they were suggesting. So I would recommend that if you want to get started and look at it. And I think with that, you want to talk. So this was one that Andrea gave us on our Slack feed that I think was pretty good.
So we use Slack. We had a professor stop by the Technology Support Center with a question, and one of my students happened to recommend that they use an FAQ article, and their remark was that, wait, so I can actually go to these FAQs first, and then if I can't find what I'm looking for, then I should contact you? And we said yes, and they were thrilled. But it was just a very nice way to see some recognition, and we have to get them over to our new emails, our newer Gmail system off of our legacy system. So.
And it generated 8 pairs of clapping hands from the IT staff, so that was a good day. And with that, I think we'll stop with sort of a Q&A and open it up to questions. And I think I'm also going to get out a full screen here so I can see what's going on as well. So let me get back here. Okay.
So I do have a question. When we were looking at the grade rubrics in the poll, we got the responses that we got from the audience, but what were the scores that you gave those tickets, the responses?
So you mean the sample tickets that we did?
Yeah.
I don't actually remember. I would agree with you. I'm sort of putting my finger on the scale here, and I chose tickets that illustrate the principle that we're trying to do. I would have agreed that with Ben's ticket that he got an A.
That's definitely an A.
Yeah.
I can probably, I'm the one being the one that grades them all the time, I can probably answer that a little bit better.
Yeah.
So with the ticket that I would have done, we get a lot of responses all over the place with that one. Little bit of background on that. The official policy of UMBC is that if a student needs to reset an exam attempt, then they do need to contact the professor. So there was very little that we could do. It wasn't that the response that was given on that ticket was wrong. That is the proper response. We just didn't have a lot that we could do, and the ticket resolution was therefore very brief. These days, we have added in the summary a separate category for tickets that do fall into that category. Maybe a person spilled Gatorade on their laptop. We can't fix that one, so we can't really give ourselves a grade on that. So that gets a not applicable grade, and that would be one of those tickets that these days would probably also get a not applicable, where we did as much as we could. Unfortunately, our ticketing system only offers a resolved status. So we can't offer a closed but didn't resolve the issue or unable to resolve status, but it would have gotten a not applicable.
I would say for the handful, very small. In fact, maybe just that one, D ticket that Andrea gets generates a lot of A's, so it all evens out in the wash. And I think as students start to see themselves as part of a team, and that this is really more a reflection of the team than it is on individuals, I think that's the kind of everybody chipping in, all hands on deck kind of response that you want on a support team, because there will be times when it's coming in fast and furious. You don't have time in some ways to let your ego get in the way of either being a star or thinking it's all about, you failed. Let's help the users help themselves. Okay. Let me, any questions from the webinar land, Beth?
We had one comment that, our attendees thought this was a great webinar, very informative. So kudos to you guys. I know I have a question. I was just curious, Andrea, do you imagine that you would ever delegate out the responsibility for grading the tickets?
We actually do. At the beginning of the semester, when we've got 200 plus tickets that we need to grade, it is not uncommon that I will break up this report. I already split it half and half with my other full-time employee. It's kind of our little Friday afternoon review period. But during the starts of the semesters and things like that, it is not uncommon that I will break it up and delegate some of those chunks to, say, our senior student consultants and have them look through as well.
Yeah, in some ways, Andrea is being modest here because she has come up with an absolutely fantastic training manual that the students all download, they use, and her model is to, yes, bring in or elevate senior student consultants so that they start to take responsibility for the training and onboarding of the new students. You think about it, that's pretty impressive that that kind of mentoring is taking place. And as you can probably imagine, we have a lot of turnover on the TSC help desk. So
50% of our staff last semester, and thanks to, we have a lot of training videos and screencasts that we have online for our students to look at, things like that. So if it weren't for our students, our senior students being able to train the newer ones, we wouldn't have been able to survive this semester, but we did so without any sort of hiccup at all.
yeah, and Andrea will also making this point, with the turnover that we have, we're able to get up to speed quicker because the students have knowledge management at their fingertips, whereas if you were only hiring IT support stars, well, it would take them a year to become that star and learn that knowledge to be able to do it. With this, there's sort of a modular plug and play that they can do it. We had a question from our home audience here, so let me ask. Go ahead.
If I understood it correctly, you refer certain tickets to other departments.
Yes.
Correct. So how would you know exactly who to contact or who to refer to if, for example, like I myself made a very lengthy number of pages for this course materials initiative. How would you know that I was the one who created it?
So
just so people, just to repeat the question, how do you know who to refer to?
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So we move a lot of tickets from TSC. We are basically the inbox for our department. So not a perfect system. Tickets do occasionally get moved to the wrong place. We have 300 queues in our ticketing system right now since we do use it across campus. But the more you use it, we have probably 13 or so go-to queues that we would move them to. It's just kind of a learning process. We let our students know that if they've got any questions about where to move a ticket, then they can always ask us, and that's still one of the things that we are investigating. When you have a ticketing system that is used across campus like we have for so many different areas, you get a lot of bloat, and you got to figure out a way to kind of keep that in control.
Yeah. You know, I would say that the full-time staff generally get the trickier tickets. The things that are more, and it's not a slight on the students at all, because it takes some skill not only to find the right FAQ, but to read the temperature of the user and know what you can and can't say and those kinds of things. But things that are complex where it's not clear, even within Do It, it's not always clear where should we escalate or transfer a ticket to. So that I think does take some time, maybe with some mapping of processes or refining processes to make it a little clearer. We can make it easier.
It's definitely a learning process. I mean, having been here 7 years, I can say I know where to send most things to, but you will every once in a while get that one ticket that comes in every 3 years that you got to think about where it needs to go. Any other questions?
I've been polling the audience. I haven't gotten any, but I have gotten several participants that have really appreciated it and said thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So I guess it's a Friday afternoon, so I think we'll look to bring this to a close. This has been recorded. I missed just the front bit just a little bit, but it should be available on the SIGUCCS website within the next few days in case anyone out there in listening land wants to share it with other folks. So thank you so much, Fritz and Andrea. I think it's great information, and I know I have a few takeaway ideas from it. So really appreciate your work, your effort, and your willingness to give back to the kind of user services community.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.